begin with a developing story. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died. Tonight, her life and legacy are being celebrated.
And the fight to replace her has already begun. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says a Trump nominee will get a vote in the Senate. Let's go live to the Supreme Court. CBS 4's Natalie Brand is there. Natalie.
And Lauren Elliott, crowds have gathered on the steps of the Supreme Court, leaving flowers, leaving candles to honor the late Justice Ginsburg. They say they are here to honor her life and career of contributions to equal rights.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a star in the legal world, but most Americans learned her name in 1993 when President Bill Clinton tapped her for the Supreme Court.
I, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, do solemnly swear.
Poised and soft-spoken, she was a native New Yorker with a stellar resume and only the second woman ever picked for the nation's highest court. Decades earlier, after graduating from Columbia Law School, Ginsburg had to fight her way along her career path. She had the full support of her husband, Martin, but being Jewish, a woman, and a mother, she said were 3 strikes that put her out of the game. Rejected by law firms, she took a job as a law clerk, then a professor. In the 1970s, she started the Women's Rights Project at the ACLU.
Having experienced discrimination, she devoted the next 20 years of her career to fighting it.
Ginsburg took on a series of landmark cases dealing with gender equality. She argued 6 cases before the Supreme Court and won 5.
It contributes to the end of the days when women, at least half the talent pool in our society, appear in high places only as one-at-a-time performers.
One of the High Court's more liberal voices, Ginsburg consistently supported civil rights, and she issued a strong dissent in the Bush versus Gore case, which decided the 2000 election. Ginsburg had several health scares. In 2018, doctors removed 2 growths from her lungs, causing her to miss 6 days in court. She survived colon cancer and 2 incidents involving pancreatic cancer. Her refusal to step down and her unparalleled work ethic earned her pop culture icon status.
It was beyond my wildest imagination that I would one day become the notorious RBG.
Ginsburg lost her husband in 2010 after 56 years of marriage, but she was back in court a few months later for what she called an exhilarating development, when Justices Kagan and Sotomayor joined her on the High Court, another milestone for the women's movement, which Ginsburg helped pioneer.
That was Natalie Brand reporting. President Trump got the news after finishing a campaign rally speech.
Well, he did not say anything about nominating a replacement.
She led an amazing life. What else can you say? She was an amazing woman. Whether you agreed or not, she was an amazing woman who led an amazing life. I'm actually sad to hear that. I am sad to hear that.
Now, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden spoke late tonight.
He praised Ginsburg and made clear that what he thinks should happen next.
There is no doubt, let me be clear, that the voters should pick the president, and the president should pick the justice for the Senate to consider. This was the position of the Republican Senate took in 2016, when there were almost 10 months to go before the election. That's the position the United States Senate must take today.
Our team coverage continues now with Jim DeFede and the political storm that is about to explode. Some may say, Jim, it has exploded. In 2016, Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to even hold a hearing, claiming it was too close to the election. That was in March. We're now in mid-September, and McConnell says tonight President Trump's nominee will get a vote. Talk about how big a fight this will be.
This is going to be huge. This is going to redefine a lot of things. Now, I will tell you that just because Mitch McConnell says there will be a vote on whoever Donald Trump nominates does not necessarily mean there will be. There is going to be a lot of pressure on a number of Republican senators to come out and oppose this, to wait until the election takes place. And if Donald Trump is reelected, then move forward with his nominee. But if Joe Biden is elected president, there are a number of Republican senators who have said in the past that they don't think that a Supreme Court nominee should be approved in a lame duck session. Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, Chuck Grassley from Iowa, Susan Collins from Maine. Even Lindsey Graham has previously said, as recently as 2018, that if a Supreme Court nominee came up in the final year of Donald Trump's term this year, that should wait until after the election. Now, will that occur? I don't. Mitch McConnell. This is what Mitch McConnell has been waiting for. This is what conservatives have been waiting for. It doesn't seem likely that they're going to try to pass up on this opportunity, but it is not a guarantee that there will be a vote on whoever the president nominates. This is going to be one heck of a fight.
All right, Jim. And Marco Rubio and Rick Scott, both Republicans, rarely break with President Trump, and neither is up for re-election right now. Rick Scott is not going to break from the president this time either. Late tonight, he tweeted, quote, "It would be irresponsible to allow an extended vacancy on the Supreme Court. I believe that President Trump's nominee should get a vote in the U.S. Senate." So what are your thoughts on that tonight?
So again, let's go back to Merrick Garland. The Republican Senate was perfectly willing to allow a Supreme Court vacancy to remain open for more than 10 months. We're talking about a little bit more than 2 months in the current case. Now, one of the things that you're going to hear Republicans argue, and there is a point to be made here, is that that when the Supreme Court sits in the first Monday of October, a lot of cases related to what happens in the November election could end up in the Supreme Court. We saw that in 2000. Do you want a full 9-member court to be able to hear those types of cases in terms of any challenges that might come up in the November election? I will also tell you that in my previous interviews with Marco Rubio, he has said that he does not equate what happened to Merrick Garland with now. He opposed Merrick Garland getting a hearing in 2016. He says it thinks that's different because that was Barack Obama in the final year of his 8 years as president. Again, there's a bit of hypocrisy here, and it would be hard to imagine, Marco Rubio breaking with the president this time. I think he's willing to be seen as a hypocrite on that and support getting a conservative justice on the court and shifting the balance considerably.
Jim, I have a feeling this is going to energize both sides, and we have just seen the beginning of a battle royale, if you will. Thank you very much, Jim DeFede. And we'll have more on the life and death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and on the fight to fill her seat on the Supreme Court throughout the weekend.